Hi, this is Joe with PrepAgent with my friend Lynn. How's it going, Lynn?
Hi.
So today we're going to go over some concepts you had sent to me. Let me start with this. Are you ready?
Yes.
What is a listing?
Listing is an employment contract.
Good. Excellent. So first things first, you said listing is a employment contract. Who's the employer?
The brokerage,
Nope.
the seller,
Excellent. Good. The seller. Who's the employee?
the brokerage.
Perfect. Why not the real estate agent?
Because the real estate agent works for the brokerage.
Good. Excellent. So the seller employs the broker, and they employ the broker, not the agent, because technically it's the broker who's responsible. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. What are they employing you to do?
To find a buyer.
You have been studying, my friend, huh? Good stuff. You're employed to find a buyer. It's a massive common misconception that a listing hires you to sell a house. You are not hired to sell a house. You are hired to find a buyer. And if you look at all the contracts, everybody sees that it's about finding a buyer. Selling the house is on the seller. When you bring the buyer, you're basically saying, here, I found the buyer. Do what you will right now. Okay? So we got
Yep.
we got off to a great start here. So let's move forward a little bit. Okay, so I got a little cartoon here I did. You are hired to find a buyer, not to sell a house. This cartoon's in my short little videos as well, all animated. So we just went over this part. And can you read this part out loud?
Seller hires the broker. Agent is working on behalf of the broker. Broker will share the commission with the agent.
Right. So when the deal is done, it's the broker who actually gets the commission, not the agent. Okay, so what does my little cartoon say up here?
Okay, it says, I have been hired to find a buyer. Help me find a buyer and I will share my commission.
Exactly. So the broker who is hired by the listing agent, by the seller to find a ready, willing, able buyer, what they're essentially doing is they're putting it out to the world, to the other brokerages out there. Hey, if you got a buyer, bring him to me and I will share my commission. What people often don't realize, there's only one commission. People think there's a commission for the agent of the buyer and the agent of the seller. There's actually only one commission. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes.
So if I'm getting like 5% from the listing, you bring a buyer, I will say, I will share my 5% with you. You'll get 2.5%. I'll keep 2.5% because you're bringing the buyer, I am the seller. We'll share it with the two brokerages, and then the brokerage will divvy up that money with their agent according to their agreement. When we create the listing, how long do we create it for? So is it like a
There
month,
is
a week, or what's the legal time frame?
it's that's whatever the seller and the buyer agree upon, right?
Yes, you are doing great today. You don't need me at all. You should teach this. Because why is that one that people get wrong all the time?
I'm thinking because they think it's like a period of time, like for 30 days or 90 days or whatnot. That's
Right.
what I'm assuming.
No, you're right, because typically when you list their house, there's a standard. There's an industry standard. And what I'm getting at is people need to differentiate industry standard versus law. Because people often think of like 5% commission. That may be the norm in your community. That's not the law. It's whatever's agreed upon. The time frames, whatever's agreed upon between the seller and the broker. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Most listings have a specific termination date.
Okay.
Can you tell me what type of listing would not have a specific termination date?
A oh, I know what this is. A lease. It's a less than year lease or something like that.
Nope. Okay, I finally got you. You're doing so well, I had to stump you. Okay. So when you have a different, huh?
I thought it was a lease that was less than a year that doesn't have to have.
No, what that is, what you're referring to, just so we can make the point, is what you're referring to, a lease under a year does not have to be in writing.
Oh, okay.
So you're thinking about something else. There's basically two types of listings, exclusive listings and open listings. And we'll get into more detail of that in a moment. Which ones do not need a termination date, the open listing or the exclusive listing?
An exclusive listing?
Does not or does need a termination date?
It does not.
It does. Because
Oh,
because what does exclusive and open mean?
exclusive is one broker, right?
Right,
And open is many.
right. So if you're just hiring one and that person doesn't do their job, you want to get somebody else. If it's open, it doesn't matter if that person doesn't do their job, as you could get somebody else regardless.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So if I hire you, I'm going to say to you, Lynn, I'm going to give you 90 days to do this. If after 90 days you don't do your job, I want to find somebody else. So I need a termination date. If it's an open listing, you could have all the time you want. Because if you stink at what you do, I'm going to find somebody else and they'll just list it and find a buyer instead of you. I don't need to terminate my contract with you to get somebody else in an open listing.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, perfect sense.
I mean, I always use the analogy of open relationships and exclusive relationships with romance. What does an open relationship mean? It means people could date more than one person, and people don't like that, right? Most people, I guess
Right.
some people may. I don't know. Because you don't need to terminate one relationship to go pursue another. Whereas with an exclusive relationship, what does that mean? You're not dating anybody else as long as I'm around. When our thing is done, then that's your business. But as long as we're together, it's just you and I.
Right.
Right? So don't always get so caught up with real estate or law because you know what these words mean, exclusive and open. Just keep it there. Okay. What is included in a listing? I don't expect you to memorize all this, but these are basic things that are included in a listing. Can you just read them out loud for me?
Names of the parties to the contract, the type of agency created, the broker's authority and responsibilities, the location of the party, which may be a street address, legal description or tax parcel number, the listing price, beginning and ending date, real and personal property included, the commission to be paid, authorization to advertise, including the placement of a for sale sign on the property, type of deed used for conveyance, the terms or termination of the contract, and in definition clause, and I don't know. Fair housing and antitrust information, the signatures of parties authorized to perform, and the protection period clause.
Right. And a lot of that, is common sense, and some of it is just stuff you learn while you study for your exam. Like common sense, it should have the price, should have the type of agency. Is it a dual agency or are you the only agent working with this? The location of the property, how much you're getting paid. Real and personal property. What's real property?
Real property is land and anything attached to it.
What's personal property?
Personal property is things that you can like can take with you that's not included in the real property.
Let me give you an easier way to remember this. Real property goes with the real estate, personal property goes with the person.
Right.
What's it called when personal property becomes real property?
Is it a fixture?
Yes, it is. Excellent. Good. Do you
Right.
remember your test to know if it is a fixture?
Excuse me?
What test do they use to identify if it's a fixture or not?
Maria?
Good. What does that stand for?
Um, the method, adaptability, relationship, intention, and agreement.
Wow, you're doing awesome. Okay, so I'm going to quiz you on one more thing before we move on. You see the fair housing and antitrust information?
That's one that I struggle with.
All right, well, I'm going to ask you one question. Other than that, we'll go over that at a different time. What year was the Federal Fair Housing Act implemented?
1968.
Man, you're not struggling at all. Okay,
That's 13th Amendment.
13th Amendment. Yeah, I mean, you're doing awesome. What's the 13th Amendment so you don't confuse people who are listening to this?
Okay, 13th Amendment is when they did away with slavery.
Right. So the Fair Housing Act is based upon the 13th Amendment. That comes up on a lot of people's exam. 1968 is a huge year. Federal fair housing was implemented 1 week after the assassination of Martin Luther King. So that's a really important time, and it comes up on your exam a lot. And frankly, it's one of those that people should know for American history anyway, even if you're not going into real estate, right?
Right.
Okay. So moving on, though, we got the protection period clause. What's that all about?
Protection period clause is the clause after if you are not successful in selling the property the amount of time, and you've discussed the property with a client, a prospective buyer, and they didn't purchase the property prior to your ending date, then and they want to come back and purchase the property because you were the procuring cause of that transaction, you are able to get your commission.
Perfect. So let's just
Right?
walk through a scenario. Yeah. So I find you're the seller, and I list your property. You hire me to find a buyer. You hire for 90 days, right? 90 days. And on the 89th day, I find Bill, right? And you go to me and you say, but Joe, your listing's ending tomorrow. It's the 89th day, and you just found Bill. And I'm like, Lynn, Bill's going to be in town any moment. Any moment he's going to be here. And Bill doesn't come back. He doesn't come back for 3 days. 2 days after the listing expires. Am I screwed?
No,
Why?
because you have the protection period clause.
Exactly. And you described it very well. So basically, the protection period clause, which on many people's exam, you might see as the safety clause, it's the same thing. It's usually about a 2 week period. But much like everything else, it's negotiable. It's a time period to close deals with people you're working with. I cannot find Bill after the 90 days have completed. All you could do is close deals with people you're working with. So when your listing is done, you write down a bunch of names: Bill, Sam, John, whoever it is. And then during that 2 week period, if that's what you agreed upon, you submit to the seller, like, look, we submitted this, I gave their information before, closing deals with these people. And that's what that protection period clause is, which you described very well. People say that what you learn in the exam is not relevant to what you'll actually do. Stuff like this contradicts that. This is on a listing and something you want to know when you're practicing real estate. People ever tell you that what you learn here is not relevant to what you're actually going to do?
Yes.
I hate them. They're the worst people ever. Don't be friends with those people, promise?
Promise.
I mean, there's no way does that motivate you to study. How does it motivate you to study if somebody says, yeah, it's never going to mean anything? I would love it if you actually look for things that do mean something, because it'll motivate you to study that more, just like the protection period clause. Okay, here we go. Moving right along. Okay, what is a exclusive listing?
An exclusive listing is one broker.
One broker. Okay. What else can you tell me about it? We went over a little bit about it just now.
Yeah, only one person sells the property, I guess.
Right. That's the one broker. We talked about the termination date, remember?
Right, and they do have a termination date.
Good. Good. There's different types of exclusive listings, correct?
Right.
What are they?
Exclusive right to sell.
Okay. What's the other?
And so you have to help me out on this one. I think it's an exclusive right to sell.
Here, I'll type it out and tell me when you know the answer. Okay.
Okay. Exclusive agency listing?
There you go. I knew you'd get it. Exclusive agency. Perfect. Okay. All right. Only one can be hired. It requires specific termination dates, such as not 90 days of completion, rather 90 days from signing. Okay, that's an example. It comes up on people's exams, so be careful for that. Because very often they'll have an option that says 90 days upon completion, 90 days from the loan. That's not a definite termination date because it's contingent upon something else that's not definite. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So they might trick you with that on the exam by doing that. Don't let them do that. Okay, so something like 90 days completion of construction is not a specific termination date. Okay. It
was 90 days from signing?
Yeah, because that's a definite termination date. 90 days from the day we sign, not 90 days from when, I don't know, my dog walks through the door or something like that. It's 90 days from signing. Okay. If two exclusive listings are signed, the seller could be liable for 2 commissions. Okay. Do you understand why?
Because you have two sales agents, right?
Right. So here's where this comes up. And this comes up in real life and exam. If you look at the bottom of the listing contract, it will say this. So exclusive listing says that I'm paying you no matter what, right? There's no other broker who could be paid. Okay?
Right.
Follow me so far?
Yes.
I do the same thing with another broker without telling you. So then you find the buyer. I owe that other broker a commission as well. Because both of you signed something that says I get paid no matter what.
Right.
This does not really happen in real life because it's very clear on the contract. And for other practical reasons, it doesn't. But you should know the legalities of it. If you sign 2 exclusive listings, which you should never do for this reason, you could be liable for 2 commissions. Because that listing states you're getting paid no matter what. No other broker could find the buyer.
Right.
Okay? So that can get a little tricky. Whereas an open listing basically says first come, first serve. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes.
Okay, and I did a little breakdown here, and it's just a sample, not actual numbers. Okay, so you have the seller giving the listing broker $1,000. That's his commission. Not a very big commission, is it? And the listing broker, who represented the seller, is $500. The buyer gets $500. They share with the agent 250, listing broker keeps 250, and so on down the line. So everybody can see a little diagram of how this all works. And this emphasizes the point for your exam, that's the listing broker who gets paid, okay? Not the agent, okay? And you knew this pretty well. When I drew this up, I didn't think you would know this as well as you do. So this is more for everybody in YouTube land. Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine.
All right. All right. Now you should know this answer right off the bat.
Exclusive listing and right to sell listing?
No, exclusive listing and
Exclusive agency listing?
no, exclusive listing and open listing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
You were getting ahead of me. There's two types of exclusive listings, which you were doing. But before this, exclusive and open. Okay? Here we go. Exclusive and non-exclusive. Open. All right?
Okay.
Okay. What is an exclusive listing?
An exclusive listing is only one brokerage is hired and they have a termination date.
Good. Excellent. Okay. What's the difference between exclusive authorization right to sell and exclusive agency listing?
Oh, you're gonna kill me. Exclusive agency listing is when you're hiring just one brokerage, right?
Okay, so they're both involving only hiring one brokerage. They're both exclusive.
Oh, wait, I think is this one where they don't get paid if the owners fail?
You see my little cartoon at the bottom?
Right.
Okay, so this is the exclusive authorization right to sell. What do you see?
The for sale sign is just one for sale sign.
What do you see here?
I see for sale by owner as well.
Right. So my point is, in exclusive agency, you can sell the house as the broker, which is that for sale sign. But the owner can also sell it themselves. If the owner sells it themselves, what do you get as the broker?
You don't get any commission.
Nothing. Nothing. Exactly. But they're both exclusive because there's only one broker involved. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, exclusive authorization right to sell. Owner agrees to sell the property through the listing broker, no matter what. They get paid no matter what. And this is what you're typically going to sign when you practice real estate.
Okay.
What does it mean to prove that you're the procuring cause of the buyer?
You have to prove that you found that buyer.
So why in exclusive authorization right to sell, you do not have to prove that you're the procuring cause of the buyer?
Because you're the only one selling the property, right?
Right. You're the only one who could do it. So if Bill comes, walks on the property, doesn't matter if you were eating ice cream the whole time, you get paid.
Right.
Now that's on the bad side. The other side, the reason you do this, because if you're working hard, buying signs and buying, advertising and going there every Sunday and really trying to push that property, and then somebody says, yeah, I found Bill, he's mine. That could really screw you as the broker who worked hard to try and find that buyer. So that's why you sign this, not because you're going to get ice cream. Because you don't want to do a whole lot of hard work and then somebody else just says, yeah, I found him, and then you don't get paid.
Right.
Do you have to prove you're the procuring cause of the buyer if it's an exclusive agency listing?
I would say no.
What's the exclusive agency listing?
Oh, yeah, because you have two. It's you and the owner, so you will have to prove that you're the procuring cause.
Excellent. Because if the owner sells it themselves, you get
You get
nothing.
no.
Right. All right. So what does that say?
The agent would have to prove that they were the procuring cause of the buyer.
Excellent. Good stuff. Now I do the little illustration at the bottom because it really makes the point here. Okay. This is an open listing down below. What do you see?
Ooh, I see a bunch of for sale signs.
Yeah, now obviously in real life that does not how it would work. You'd more see it with like construction and new homes, like those developments. But it makes the point here that an open listing would be like if every broker tried to sell the property, first come, first serve. Okay. And like I said, usually you see construction companies will put out an open listing with a lot of agents when they build like these massive buildings where they're trying to sell apartments in the building or these developments, these communities. So this is what an open listing looks like. Would you have to prove the procuring cause in an open listing?
Definitely.
Why?
Because it's more than one agent that's trying to sell the property.
Right. It's basically a free for all. It's basically saying whoever brings the buyer, I'm paying. Period. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So as long as they're principal in the transaction or have a real estate license, who's the principal in the transaction?
The seller.
Good. That's why I say with the open listings, you may have seen them in your town or when you're around. Like, for example, you see a brand new building come up with brand new condos. Okay. They will say, whatever agents bring buyers to our condo, we will pay. Right. But now, does that construction company need that real estate license to sell their own condos?
No.
No, because they're the seller. They're the principal in the transaction. Okay. Like, do you need a real estate license to sell your home right now?
No.
No, because you are the principal in the transaction. You could represent yourself. You hear the for sale by owner a lot. You ever heard that before?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's what that's all about. All right. Open listing. It is not exclusive to anybody. What's a net listing?
Ooh, something that we do not want to be. Net listing is when they have a set price.
Okay.
And say, for instance, if the house sells for $500,000 and or the owner sells it for $500,000, I don't want less than $500,000. But if you get more than $500,000, the rest is your commission.
So you're telling me if I find somebody buyer for 600,000, I'll make $100,000?
Yeah.
That sounds amazing. Why would I not want that? Why are you saying that people don't want that? Why is that sketchy?
Well, because if you sell it for $500,000 and that's all you get, well, then that goes straight to the owner, and you get no commission.
Right, which is why it's illegal in most states.
Right.
Because there's a conflict of interest. Because you as the seller want 500 grand. I have a 500 grand offer, so you as the seller would be happy, but it's not in my interest to show it to you. So therefore, I'd have to violate my fiduciary duty in order to make any money. Did you follow me on that?
Right.
Because my fiduciary duty says do what's best for you, not what's best for me. Look out for your interest. But if I do that, I don't make any money, so it creates a conflict of interest. Okay, here, read this out loud.
Agent agrees to selling a property for a minimum price. Anything over the minimum price belongs to the agent as commission. There is no stipulated selling price, thus no stipulated commission.
Good. Yeah, illegal in most states, not good. And there's the example you were talking about. Property owner wants 500 grand, agent sells it for 550, agent made 50 grand, agent sells it for 500, the agent makes nothing. Okay. What is that fiduciary relationship?
Now, when you said,
Yes. What's your question?
fiduciary relationship, No, on a net listing, it's like, I mean, is it so that some states actually still use that, or?
Yeah, I mean, different states have different rules on that. So depending on the state you're in, for the people who are listening to this, you want to check with your own state rules. But regardless, a lot of people come to me and say, well, if it's illegal, why do I have to know it? Well, you got to know things that are illegal as well. Things like blockbusting, redlining. You got to know what it is. There are states where it's allowed, but it's frowned upon. And there are most states that would make it just straight up illegal.
Right,
Okay. But either way, whether it's illegal or legal for your state, you still have to know what it is for your exam.
right.
Okay. So what's the fiduciary relationship?
Um, you have to have care, um, loyalty. You have to put the principals, um, interest first, uh, basically.
No, it's not basic. It's exact. You're doing great. Care, loyalty, honesty, putting their interest above your own, which is why that net listing, what I was referring to before, in order to make money, you would have to violate your fiduciary duty. These with that whole 500 grand analogy you used.
Right.
Okay. And if you want to remember the responsibilities of the fiduciary duty, just remember this: a cold, accountability, care and skill, obey legal instructions, loyalty to your client, and disclose all pertinent information. So if you're ever unsure if you're acting as a good fiduciary, you follow those rules. Are you being accountable? Are you using care and skill? Are you obeying their legal instructions? Are you loyal to the client? And are disclosing all pertinent information? Okay.
Yes.
What's dual agency?
When you're representing both the buyer and seller.
Who? So you're saying you as an agent represent the buyer and the seller?
Yes.
That's correct. Can you be a dual agent and not know the buyer? Possible. So you're an agent
It's
representing the seller. You don't know the buyer, never met him. Can there still be a dual agency?
yes.
How?
Um, it can be an assumption. Um,
What if that agent representing the seller works for the same broker as you?
oh, okay.
So if you're in a big, big office, some of these offices have hundreds of agents in them. Is there a chance that you don't know every single agent
Right.
and they roll up and they're representing the buyer? Is that a dual agency?
Yes,
Why?
because they work for the same brokerage,
And in the day, who's representing the parties?
the brokerage.
So technically and legally, the same person is representing the buyer as representing the seller. Because as we spoke about before, it's not about the agents, it's about the broker.
Right.
Yeah, so that could be a dual agency. What's an implied agency?
Um, is that like verbal?
You ever heard the expression walks like a duck, acts like a duck, must be a agent?
Duck.
Yes. Walks like a duck, acts like a duck, must be an agent. What do I mean by that?
Um, if I don't know how to put it.
So if I'm showing you properties and I'm acting, I'm giving you advice and you're seeking my counsel and we're working together as such, you could legally argue that I'm your agent. Is that the best way to go about it? No. You want to get things in writing. But technically and legally, you could have an implied agency.
Okay.
So if I'm acting as something, I am that thing. This comes up in contracts all the time. You gotta know implied contract as well. Um, Can I give you an example of an implied contract that you probably see regularly?
Okay.
When you go to a restaurant, do you pay the bill at the end of when you finish eating?
Yes.
Why? You didn't sign anything. So when they bring you that bill at the end, says, Lynn, here's your meal, your bill's $40. Do you say, no, I didn't sign anything. I'm not paying. Nothing signs that I would pay that. But
Right.
why?
Because you ate their food.
Because that's an implied contract. It's implied that
Right.
you sit down and you order that you're paying. Even though you didn't sign anything, you didn't sit down, order your food, and then sign something saying, I will pay this after I finish eating. I will pay the amount I see on the menu.
Right. Because you know you owe them something.
Right. It's an implied contract, even though nothing's signed. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And you could have those for real estate as well. There's implied contracts. Okay.
Is that like when people go in and do open housing, and they do open houses and they walk through, and some people that can actually, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we'll do one on contracts. We'll go over that. But the implied contracts more come up with leases a lot more. I'll give you an example. If I'm living in a property and we don't sign anything, but I'm paying you $1,000 a month and you're collecting that $1,000, am I your tenant?
Right.
Now, states have different laws, but you get the idea. If you go to court and I say, look, Lim is collecting my $1,000 every month, I'm living there, she's collecting money, 2 and 2 adds up. Clearly, we have an agreement here.
Right.
Okay. So I want to tell you, you did great. I just wrote that on the board. You did awesome. You knew a lot more than I thought you would. You clearly studied. Very impressed with everything you did.
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome. So is there anything else you want me to hit on right now, or are we good for now? Pick it up another time.
Yep, we'll pick up another time. Thank you.
All right, you did awesome. This is Joe from PrepAgent. As always, leave comments below if I said anything wrong or you want me to explain something more clearly. But Lynn, I am extremely impressed with you. I am very confident that you're going to be fine on your exam.
Thank you. Thank you.
So go get them, and before you know it, we'll be promoting you on bench ads, right?
Thank you. Yes.
Isn't that the goal for real estate agents? I've known many real estate agents who don't even like bench ads, but they just want that bench ad to say, I made it, I passed, I'm getting that stupid bench ad. I want it. It's like a trophy to be like, I've arrived. Now take that thing down. So hopefully you'll have your bench ad soon. So good luck.
I will.
Keep in touch, and you did great.
Thank you. Thanks, Joe.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Talk to you soon. Bye.